please take it.
So a very warm welcome to everyone. And just to let you know, because my husband, Stephen, computer crashed and he is doing something at the same time, out of compassion, I gave him my computer and I am on his iPad. So I am not going to be able to see all of you all the time. And also with the chat, it will be a little kind of, we'll see how it works. But I'm very happy to be with you tonight, this evening, wherever you are, because you are in a different place in Europe, from what I understand. So what I would like to suggest is that in a way we're arriving. Each of you might have had a full day, lots of activity, listening, being with people. And so now I thought we could start the session with just sitting in meditation for 10 minutes. So in a way, again, stabilizing, being with caring and careful mindfulness, and also experiencing in our body a kind of a certain type of equanimity. And the Buddha says equanimity is a quality which renders the mind like gold, brilliant and malleable. So maybe let's try to kind of connect to that quality now. So if we find a comfortable posture, the back is straight. And again, use whatever posture works for you. If you can sit on a chair and it's fine. If you sit on the floor, it's fine. If you need to lie down, it's fine. If you need to stand, that's fine too. If you need to move, this is fine too. Whatever suits your body. Again, having compassion for one's own state, one's own body. So finding a comfortable posture. Finding some stability through connected to the feet, touching the ground. The buttocks touching the seat. The hand touching each other or the knees. The back relatively straight and relaxed. Bringing a caring and careful, compassionate mindfulness to this body, to this moment right now. If we want, we can use the breath as an anchor, a friendly anchor for our attention. Experiencing the breath coming in and out.
Alors, tu fixes derrière. Oui. Tradition.
Being aware of the breath, being aware of the potential for a life lived with compassion and wisdom.
Recording in progress.
Being aware of the breath, being aware of all the sentient beings who breathe like us. Realizing our life rests upon a single breath. Can we appreciate each breath? Have compassion for the fragility of life. And we radiate this creative, wise compassion within us and all around us. May our practice benefit all beings. So this evening, I wanted to look at this theme of creative, wise compassion, and how with this creative, wise compassion, we can actually meet either our own suffering or more global or suffering around us. And of course, I cannot begin without mentioning that at the moment in Europe, there is this great cry for compassion, as there is this deep suffering in Ukraine, and the war and the bombardment and people fleeing the country. And in a way, one of the very important theme of the Buddha was the fact that in life and with human beings, you have a potential for good and you have the potential for harming. And so one of his main themes was, how can we cause the least harm possible? And so how can we cultivate conditions within ourselves and out of ourselves so that it is more likely there will be less harm? And so at the moment, in a way, we can see the power of harmfulness. And to me, what was very strange was the day the war started in Ukraine. I was very concerned. And at the same time, because it was sunny here, I went to work in the garden. And I thought, isn't it weird? I work in the garden and there is a war. And you have the impression that when there is this kind of suffering, that things should stop. But things do not stop, things continue. And at the same time, realizing that, yes, this is very close, this is happening now in Ukraine. But I mean, the Russians are still bombing the Syrian. And that's quite far away from them. And before that, they bombed other people. And at the same time, people are being bombed in Yemen. And at the same time, in Burma, a Burmese country, you have the dictatorship with, again, killing lots of people. And in East Timor, in Tibet, in many different places, people are suffering. And this is what is so difficult, because we feel so powerless in a way, because it's people in power who for greed and hatred harm a lot of people. And you think, but we don't need this. We can live peacefully. But you have some people who decide it's like they have a different style of humanity. And so they kind of cannot consider the humanity. And so I think for us, what can we do? Because in a way we cannot, I mean, unless you know somebody very high up, we cannot do anything or very little in terms of higher up in many different countries to help out. But it seems to me what we can do at our level is, in a way, how can we be compassionate to ourselves when, again, there is this kind of, you had COVID and now you have this, and before that you had something else, and it's kind of like this suffering people are causing. You could say, COVID you can't help, but war, it's really kind of such unnecessary suffering. And so you think for yourself, like powerless. But at the same time, it seems to me that what we can do is not be disheartened. And so that's why I find very beautiful at the moment is everybody around Ukraine trying to help people who are fleeing it in whatever way they can. But I think my theme is creative, wise compassion. So compassion is a fact that as human beings, we have this ability to, in a way, empathize with suffering, recognize suffering, be available to suffering. But be available to suffering is actually difficult because it makes us in touch with our own suffering, with what I call unpleasant feeling tone. And as soon as you experience unpleasant feeling tone, then immediately we generally associate and we can be very easily overwhelmed. And so that's why I talk about creative, wise compassion, so that we do not feel immediately overwhelmed. But that's why there is this point of equanimity. How can we develop some stability so we can be with suffering without being overwhelmed by it? And so in a way, so to have compassion together with equanimity is going to help us to have a creative, wise response and to see each of us when we encounter suffering. Sometimes we cannot do anything, but what we can do is we can be aware, we can be kind, we can listen, and then sometimes we can do something. Yesterday, I was part of this marathon event, 4 hours of, it was exceptional women Buddhist award, exemplary Buddhist women award, and somebody nominated me. But I felt very humble because I am really kind of a very small person. But you had these nuns, they were working with the dying, and they were creating huge things to help out and program to help out people who were dying, or creating theater to talk about death and dying. And you had those people working with orphans, working, I mean, it was like, and you discover all these nuns in all these countries, because you had people from Bangladesh, from Malaysia, from Sri Lanka, from Thailand, from Taiwan. I mean, you had people from everywhere, all women, and all doing what I would call compassionate work. And in a way, to me, it was very inspiring, that in a way, everybody in their own way was trying to cultivate this creative, wise compassion. And I was amazed that there were so many and doing so many different work. But then what we have to be careful with compassion is that we too can have compassion toward ourselves. Because often people think of compassion as what I call heroic compassion, only for others. But actually, compassion is a spectrum. At times, you need to have more compassion for yourself. If you are ill, at times you have to be heroic and have more compassion for others because they're really in need. And sometimes it's in between. And what we really, and I think that's why caring, careful mindfulness can help us in two ways. Help us in what is our limit in terms of this creative, wise response to suffering. And at the same time, wise compassion because we listen. You see, this is an important part of mindfulness. There is this mindfulness practice of just listening to the sound of the world, to the music of the world. So that in compassion, I think what is very important is that in a way, self-centeredness goes down and we open to the other, but we open to the other for themselves. And so we have to be careful. I mean, one of the things in terms of Ukraine I am reading is that people are saying, stop sending blankets. We don't need blankets anymore. We have enough blankets. So in a way, we have to be careful. What is wise? What is it that the people really need? You know, because sometimes you think, oh, I will give them my old blanket, and that's a good way to get rid of them anyway. And so sometimes we have to be careful with compassion. It looks like it's helping others, but are we really listening to what they need? And can we really, in a way, give it to them? So I think that's why it's so important, this creative, wise compassion. And so, in a way, to really see that when somebody is suffering, what is it I can do? Sometimes just to listen, just to be with them. And sometimes they ask you and you can do something. And so in a way, it's kind of like, what is it in my small way can I do for this person, or can I do for this situation, or can I do for myself? And so in that way, I think in terms of limitation, we have to also look at what is safe and what is not safe in terms of this wise compassion. And that's why we have to be careful, because sometimes we kind of think, oh, I must give, but then you get, suddenly there is no energy and you cannot do anymore. So really, in kind of, especially when there is lots of stress, lots of anxiety, lots of demands, I think we, in a way, do the best we can considering the situation of others, but of course, also our situation. And one of the beautiful things about compassion is that the Buddha said it's actually an antidote to cruelty. So in a way, compassion makes us, I would say, truly human, so that we can be with suffering, we can see suffering, we can available to suffering, but without being overwhelmed by it. And that's why when we practice meditation, what we are doing is really, in a way, I think, stabilizing, balancing, grounding. And we really need, because when there is suffering, we think, I must do something. Something must happen. Of course, we can do something. Something must happen to relieve the suffering, but can we do it in a steady way? Can we do it in a stable way? I think this is something which is so important, to remember that actually all this quality goes together. the caring and careful mindfulness, which helps us to stabilize the mind, stabilize the body, stabilize the emotion, so that we can feel very strong emotion. But again, we are not overwhelmed by them. And at the same time, we have this equanimity. So in a way, each of us has to see what is it that helps me to calm myself. Not that we have to be utterly calm, regardless, but more thinking of calm as a way to be stable so that we can be effective and not overwhelmed. And so really to see how these three aspects of the practice come together. The caring and careful mindfulness with the creative wise compassion, with the equanimity, which the Buddha says is like, make the mind like gold, brilliant. So, because in a way, when there is suffering, we need wisdom. What are the conditions for this suffering? How can I help the condition of this suffering in a useful way? And malleable because we can adapt to circumstances. So that's what I wanted to say for now. And so we thought we could have a little period of discussion. So if somebody wants to make a comment or want to ask a question, then we can open the floor for about 15 minutes. And then after that, we can have the breakout groups. And after that, we can come back into more open discussion. And we can also finish with some meditation.
Okay, since there is 32 of us and I cannot see all of you on one screen, if somebody would like to say something, please use the reaction button and just raise your virtual hand. So I would see you on the top of the screen and I can invite you to the discussion, okay? On the bottom, you've got a button with reactions. If you click on it, you can see hand up. So whoever would like to say something or ask something, you use this hand so I can see it.
Okay, Bodhi.
Hello, everyone. First of all, thanks, Martine. Lovely to listen to your words. And thanks to everyone else. I suppose what's coming to my mind right at the moment, many things, given the circumstance of that's happening at the moment in relatively close. I've got a friend who was teaching mindfulness in Russia and Ukraine and has had to flee Ukraine and is now coming to Spain. So things feel very raw, very real. Myself, I feel I'm going through quite a lot of suffering on a personal level. So it's very alive, you know, this topic is very alive for me, and I'm sure it is for everyone else here at the moment. So there's many strands of things that you've said that I could pick up on, but one that comes to mind is, you know, this, we need wisdom to meet compassion, and maybe just, could you say a few more words about, you know, cultivating wisdom, really? You know, we can read books, we can go on retreats, we can meditate, we can listen to people like yourself. But could you say a few more words about developing wisdom?
So wisdom, you actually, I mean, in terms of the Buddhist training, you see wisdom with three aspects. You have the wisdom of listening, so acquiring knowledge, listening. Then you have the wisdom of reflecting on what you heard or read or studied. And then you have the wisdom of experience. So that in a way, by putting what you heard, read, listened to into practice, you actually develop your own wisdom. And for me, this is what I think we're doing when we're sitting in meditation. And to me, in a way, the wisdom is allowing the brightness of the mind to manifest. And you could say what stops the brightness of the mind to manifest is actually our habituation. We have a tendency to kind of, think a certain way, feel a certain way, sense a certain way, relate in a certain way. And it's very hard not to do that. We have good intention, and then you say something a little unpleasant, and you think, wait a minute, what happened there? So to me, in a way, when we sit in meditation and we come back again and again to the breath, to the body, to the sound, to loving kindness, we are actually helping ourselves to move from habituation to what I call creative functioning. And then if the habituation dissolves, then you can be really creative. That's why I talk about creative, wise compassion. So that it's kind of building something within ourselves. You remove the obstacle of something, and then something, the creative potential can arise and actually respond to the situation. And I think, from what I understand, most of you are mindfulness teachers, and very likely most of you have had one-to-one with people. And when you have one-to-one with people, you might notice, I hope, that you really try to be there, really present, really mindful. And if you are really present, really mindful, totally listening to the person, when they start, often you will say something so relevant, so wise, you had never thought before. And often you surprise yourself and you think, where does this come from? I must remember it, it's so good. And then you forget it because the situation has passed, actually. So I think all of us have this wisdom. But I think, in a way, the meditation helps us to in a way, embed it, to ground it, so that then it can come out in the situation. I mean, wisdom is a big subject, but that's the way I would kind of briefly mention it here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Who else? We still have got some time. Thank you, Bodhi, for a great question. Nancy? Okay. Well, for a moment I showed a hand, but it wasn't yours. I'm sorry. Who else? Carmel?
Hi, thank you, Mirka. Good evening, Martine. Good evening, everyone. I thank you for this, EAMBA, and also for your very, very wise input, Martine. And I suppose, I practice as a psychotherapist as well as being a mindfulness practitioner, sometimes a teacher, but the key thing is my own practice, really. But I suppose this is a very challenging time for us all globally. And, I do know something about compassion fatigue, but it's going to be very challenging for all of us. I think, particularly living in Europe, when all our countries are, appropriately, going to be very busy welcoming people from Ukraine, sadly, but we need to do that, and it's all hands on deck. And I just want to know really how in a way, your reflections on wisdom, wise compassion are really helpful, but it's easy to kind of in an everyday situation to be wise, but this is an exceptional time of trauma and action, and in a way, how can, and hearing probably very difficult stories or whatever, how can we kind of reduce the possibility of compassion fatigue in this context particularly?
The one thing I would really suggest, because in a way at the moment, you could say, personally, I think at the moment, there are three things. I mean, three main things and many other big things, but they are the three main things. You have the COVID-19, and this is not finished, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. Then you have the ecological crisis, which is not finished at all. And then you have the Ukrainian situation and all the other situation of that nature. And so personally, what I do for myself is that I try to watch the least news I can every day. I mean, I looked a little on Le Monde, the BBC, to see what's happening, and I share things if I share them, but I really try to limit so that I'm not every hour checking, because I think this really makes it quite difficult. And I think it was the same with COVID, and I think it's the same with the ecology. I think we have to kind of limit a little bit the amount of time we spend on screen with the news or this kind of thing, because that's really, I think, impact our nervous system. And then I think the next thing is that hopefully we try to do something, but we try to do what I would call the least we can do. What is the least we can do? So that we feel that we can do something. We are not powerless. I think this is important. But we are careful about the most I can do. That I think is what one has to be careful about. And at the same time, there is still joy in life. I think this is why there are the four qualities. You have the quality of friendliness, the quality of compassion, but you also have the quality of appreciation, of rejoicing. And I think this is in a way what life throws at us, is that with terrible suffering, you also still have beauty, you still have love, you still have kindness. And I think this is really important to be careful with that. And the third one, I would say, is to really, as much as we can, not inflame things. How can we not inflame? To me, this is not that we are passive, but how do we make least harm considering the situation? That's the thing I would say. It seems to me in that way you're kind of less innovated.
I guess we use time for the discussion.
Yeah, so now we could, we thought that since you it's kind of a group, you know each other more in some way. Some of you know each other, but you all it's a mindfulness group, and so it's quite safe. So we thought it would be nice in this time that one feel a little kind of, separate from all these things, to kind of come together in small groups. So what we thought we could for about 15 minutes, to be in group of threes. And then you can just talk together about how am I dealing? How can I create? How have I been able to creatively engage with suffering? And how have I been overwhelmed with suffering? And how mindfulness has helped me, or equanimity has helped me, or wise compassion has helped me. I thought that's something you could discuss in terms of your own experience. And then Teresa is going to be the magical person.
Okay, so Teresa is setting up breakout rooms.
Yeah, they're ready. There is a group of 2, but yeah.
Okay, and on the chat, you would find the short description of what Martine suggests us to do in small groups. There are 2 messages from EAMBA Exchange. They are not one after another, so you can read them to be clear about instructions. Okay. So, any questions? My one suggestion is when you meet yourself in a small groups, because for all of you it would be the first time you see other person, just say your name and where are you from, and then go on to the topic. Okay.
So it's very nice. Now I'm very happy to be back at my desk so that I am on my computer and I can see most of you. So that's wonderful. Before I was on a small iPad. And so I hope you had a very good discussion. And before I open it to people, Teresa had a very important point about something that some of you had discussed previously. And the fact that, a bit like me in the garden, the fact that you're very aware that people are suffering, and at the same time, you're aware in a way that you are very privileged. You have a warm bed, etc., etc. But I think it was the same situation during COVID, because during COVID-19, I felt so privileged, you know, and then there was people in the supermarket, there was people who were kind of really at the forefront in the hospital, and then we were quite safe. And so I think at any given point, we will be in circumstances where we'll be the one who are suffering, and there will be other circumstances where it will be other who are suffering. And in a way, life asks us to have both, that there is suffering at the same time as joy. But the fact that you are okay doesn't mean that you need to feel guilty because somebody is not okay. But of course, you see, in the Buddhist training, you have the idea of hiri and ottappa. And hiri is actually feeling, it's kind of what you could call the concept of guilt, but a very different take, because it's about self-respect. So that I feel that I do the best I can. So I'm not going in a way to feel guilty, because I am trying to respect myself. I'm trying to cultivate the wholesome quality. I'm going to try to help in the way I can. And there is ottappa, which is in a way you could say social respect, respect for living together in harmony. And so again, you're going to try, that's what I was talking about, not creating more hatred, not trying to cultivate more harm. And I think it was the same during COVID-19, where you would be kind of, you know, at the dinner table with family, and suddenly kind of somebody was going, I mean, once I was in one of these conversations, somebody going on to this kind of slight kind of discussion, which was getting a little heated between the father and the son, and me saying, oh, maybe we should go and see the goats now. We should go outside. We should change the subject, because actually it was not going to take us anywhere, this discussion. And so in a way, at times, yeah, we need to discuss things if we can do it again in a stable way. And at other time, let's take this somewhere else. Let's do something else. So I think it's to see that any organism cannot be always suffering. And you cannot always be happy. You cannot not always be well. So in a way, the fact that even people who are suffering can feel joy. And even if we have joy, it doesn't mean we cannot have suffering. So I think at the same time to be humbled, I think really to be humbled by the fact that right now we are privileged. And because we are privileged right now, how can within, around us, cultivate harmony? And how can we help others? To me, that's a way to counterbalance this kind of, to feel guilty about you being okay. People who are suffering are not asking you to suffer. They want to suffer less, but you suffering generally is not going to help them out. But anyway, we wanted to open it up also if from the little discussion, anybody wanted to share something, bring something.
And again, just raise your virtual hand and please share with us what came out of small groups discussion. Stefan?
Yes, thank you. So nice to meet you, all of you, tonight on this very sensitive subject. For me, what just was in mind with Stacy when we shared together in small groups is about doing small, doing less, rather than doing like hyperactivity or something like that. What I want to say is that mindfulness is bringing me the consciousness of what I'm doing, and is it the correct level of doing something? Because doing a lot can be a reaction also to the event, just to I don't know the word in English, sorry, but to compensate, you can say that, to or to have a better deal with the suffering, my own suffering, my own anxiety, my own fear about the situation. And so this can encourage me to do more and more and more, just to escape from my own mind. So I think doing less is a good way to, and so the question I ask me very, very often is, can I do less rather than can I do more? And it's a bit strange and paradoxical. Yes, it's a paradox, because when there is agitation, you can be tempted to do more and more and more and more. And so, and the reflection on this is about powerless and powerful. If I feel powerless, I can be powerful too at the same time, because it's just a matter of reference. So just if I put the reference at oh yes, it's a tragedy and I cannot do nothing, and really I can do nothing. This is just a way to see the things. And inside this situation, I'm sure I can be powerful too at the same time.
Thank you, Stefan. Somebody else?
Nancy has raised the hand.
Can you say it again, Teresa? I didn't.
Nancy has raised the hand. You can, yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I will
please, yeah.
unmute. Yeah, when I hear to Stefan, I can relate to what he's saying, but I came into action. For me, it's like I first was startled and devastated and totally in shock that this was happening. And then I was thinking, okay, what is something I can do? And then I went onto Google and looked for mindfulness trainers Ukraine, and I found Elena. And now I have like intense email contact with Elena, and she also joined EAMBA Exchange and takes part of the heart meditation we put up almost every day at 5 o'clock. And yeah, I'm looking also in my area because a lot of people are yeah, undertaking action, and they do not take so good care for themselves. They are like overcompensating and overreacting. So I speak to them and then I say, oh, but you should also take good care of yourself, because when the helpers are not able to help anymore, who is there to help? So I'm busy with that, and also with see if we can arrange and support people that are offering help in our area. And today I talked to a social worker, but she has to go to the train station because 200 refugees were arising, and I am getting into connection with all people I know who know something about trauma treatment or things like that, to see if we can organize something and be of help in our area. So that's, yeah, so I am undertaking action, but I want to undertake constructive action, because what you see now is there are all kinds of initiatives popping up, and you have to organize and to get connected to each other. So that's what I'm quite busy with right now at this moment, to make these connections, to build bridges, and to organize together. So I came into action, but I'm trying to undertake constructive action.
No, wonderful, Nancy. And I think, you see, again, I think it's going to depend very much where geographically one is going to be, that one can actually do really something which is very active, and then other places where actually there is less possibility to be very active. And so, and different people, I was thinking, listening to Stefan, different people will be in different places. Some people will actually need to do less because they're already doing lots in their life anyway. And some people will actually realize, oh yeah, I can really get involved here, but I can get involved here in a constructive way, as you said. What is possible, what makes sense. And it seems to me that one of the things we can do in terms of mindfulness and Buddhist group is like there was kind of a group in Odessa, which was organizing a little meditation together, and then other people joining them to kind of, so that they see, oh yeah, we see them, we hear them, we are there for them. So I think connecting with mindfulness people, I mean, you can help ordinary people on the ground, but it also, as you say, makes sense to kind of be supportive of people in a way, possibly only us can be supportive in that way to these people, like the Buddhist group in Odessa or mindfulness teachers in Ukraine. So no, I think, again, we have to see that each of us will have different circumstances. And in that will be more or less active or more active according to what is wise, actually. Anything else? Anybody else?
Eugenio, and then Magdalena.
Yes, thanks. Thanks, Martine, for this, your words and about this important topic. I just want to share that I always feel very bad in a sense when we talk about war or victims, that we usually don't mention the both parts of the suffering. I mean, of course, Ukraine there's a lot of suffering going on, but Russians are suffering too. I have friends in Russia and they get also blocked, and it's so yeah, it's helping also in that, helping also in that in seeing that it's there's a lot of suffering, not just the apparent suffering, the one we see in the news, people dying and the family. It's also the one that the soldiers and people, and yeah, and I'm very sensitive to having worked with jihadists, that usually when there is a bomb attack, they don't get mentioned, in the victims. They never get mentioned in the victims. Like, it's always 10 dead people, and then the people that maybe did that, he's not mentioned, in the news. It's like there's a lot of suffering going on also for the Russians too, and in general when there is a war. Being sensitive to that. That's
exactly. I think this is what I was talking in terms of harmony and understanding. I think it's kind of like that's what I was saying, to be careful in terms of increasing division, and kind of see how can we kind of see the suffering. And there is suffering everywhere in one way. There's suffering on both sides in different way. And so again, it's our connection and how can we support each other in different places. And I think this is, each of us have such different circumstances and conditions, and people I think this kind of like people people you are in contact with. And so I think that's what creative wise compassion asks us to do. Not all the time 100%, but kind of see kind of like the ripples. So many ripples. And so in a way, at what level of ripple of suffering can I support? Can I understand? Can I help out? And at that level, there are so many different things and so many different aspects. And then there was
Magdalena.
Hi, I'm new to this group. I was introduced last week by a colleague from Montenegro. And it comes to me, this beautiful English word, discernment. How it is important and how mindfulness works with this discernment. Shall I do more or less? How to respond to this Russian man, to this Ukraine man now, to be very clear about my intention. And it is so complex, and we went through that 30 years ago, Croats and Serbs and Montenegro people. And the other day I was reading about differences between Ukraine and English language and how important it is on the field just to use to say the Ukraine or Ukraine. It's very different, and mindfulness can help just to what is the verb for discernment? Just to have discernment for your own intention first of all, and then go bravely and compassionately into the, to relate to people, to relate to the situation, to relate to yourself. I mean, day by day, new decision. And mindfulness is just like a friend who is always here with you. So thank you for the opportunity to talk to this beautiful group of people. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Magdalena, because I have been thinking a lot about Yugoslavia, actually. And I have been thinking a lot about that, and really kind of feeling for what you all went through and how this can also kind of be a reminder. Also for me, a terrible reminder of the power of a few people to destroy. And so in a way, it's for us, can we cultivate the power to generate?
Yeah. And just one sentence to add. And I was thinking the other day watching the television, how brave someone should be in a year or 2 or 3 years to stand for Russian rights in Ukraine. Just in few years, you know. How brave should someone be after all this?
Yeah, history teaches us. To me, this is kind of like, it gives me hope. What gives me hope actually is impermanence. That at some point, something changed. But it's on the long term. I mean, this is what happened with Yugoslavia, and it was terrible. And then hopefully some peace can be there and some growth can be there. But at the moment, it's kind of like we are in the midst of the harmfulness.
Yes.
And then we need still, I feel, to cultivate the non-harmfulness, to prepare to grow it more. Anybody else?
Ines.
I think I pressed it by me. Thank you, Martine, for such profound and simple and graspable words. I think the framework I was sharing I had the tremendous privilege of having a 2-person group, and I seem to have talked a lot, but the simplicity of the framework you laid out with the what is the least I can do and what is the most I can do really serves as it's a very clear way of defining what is most appropriate for ourselves and for the moment. So that really brought a tremendous amount of light. Also because we were reflecting about previous times we were overwhelmed, and I was particularly overwhelmed at the start of the COVID pandemic, also because I was ill with COVID. And the least I could do was take care of myself. And the most I could do was take care of myself. And then it evolved, and as things stabilized, the least I could do was still take care of myself. And the taking care of myself is through heart practices. I think they still are, to me, one way of being active. Even if you're bedbound, even if you're overwhelmed, you are being active. So I thank you for that framework. I think I will be sharing it and quoting you in the coming days, because I think it's going to be super useful as a basis for checking in constantly and continuously and in how we're going to help and how we get involved. So thank you.
Thank you.
Axel.
Axel.
Hello, hello, Martine. Thank you. By having this discussion in our little group, the idea that came was the idea of not fixing yourself, and sometimes I find myself fighting with my suffering, and that's difficult to be compassionate. So for me, it's really accepting being vulnerable, and this war that's going on actually creates some possibility of being more vulnerable, feeling more the reality of impermanence, and actually the more I feel this vulnerability, the more I feel close, not close to everybody, but it opens, I feel it opens a relationship with people. That's what I wanted to say, to share. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you very much. It was wonderful to be with you all. And really, what I would encourage you is really please take good care of yourself. And again, each of you very likely already are being on the forefront of suffering. If you are therapists, if you are dealing with people who are ill, who have anxiety, so you're already taking care of that. You're already responding wisely. And then, of course, we can see, can we do a little more? Sometimes we can, and sometimes we cannot. And I think we have to accept that there are times we can be more active. And possibly there are also times, as Ines pointed out, we have to be less active. So I think really back to the wisdom of listening, the wisdom of the middle way. And I don't know if Mirka has to make some announcements.
Yes, thank you, Martine. I would like to let all of you know that we at EAMBA Exchange organize almost every day at 5 o'clock Central European time, half an hour heart meditation for Ukraine and everybody suffering from this war. It's led by different people who sometimes well-known teachers, sometimes just members of EAMBA spontaneously. So you're welcome to join it. My personal experience is that it really helps me just to stay grounded, to stay close to my heart, meditate with all those people in similar situations. So you're very welcome. I just publish as a message on the chat www address. If you go there, look at the agenda, you will find all information with the schedule for upcoming whole months, I guess. So you're very welcome. Martine, thank you very much again. I came here fragile and I coming out nourished and more open. I wish all of you stay with open and a bright heart as much as we can. Thank you.
Please keep well while being of benefit to others, to life, to nature. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.